Good, thanks.
Good afternoon, good morning. We will wait a few minutes for people to join online.
Odin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, Philippe.
Oui, bonjour. Hello.
Hello, Philippe.
Bonjour, Fanny.
Bonjour.
Can we see Christophe and Gabriel and John on their camera?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see Gabriel.
Just
We see
to-
John. Philippe. I don't see Christophe for now.
Christophe, he was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see him, but
Yeah.
without the camera for now.
Yeah. So we are almost 70. So Fanny, it's when you want, we can maybe wait 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Odin. Okay, so I guess we can start this webinar. So good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to this second episode of the CICA and NEC series of webinars. So today we will delve into the concept of early contractor involvements with very concrete highlights and practical considerations. We are very pleased to have with us 3 speakers experimented in ECI with different backgrounds and perspectives. So we are happy to have John Cherry, who is NEC practice lead at Stantec UK. He will present the NEC Clause X22. So John was already there for our first webinar together. We also have Christophe Deboeuf, who is Business Development Manager, International Civil and Marine Works at B6. And Christophe will present a very concrete contractor's experience with an ECI in Brazil. I am also very happy to have with us today Gabriel Armanet, who is Senior Director for the Construction Practice of FTI in Paris, who will share with us the main factors for successful ECIs and explicit key concepts like adequate budgets, target cost, open books. We will take the audience questions after the presentations, so we can have enough time for each speaker to do his presentation, but you can also, as usual, type some questions in the chats. So before we start with the presentation, CICA President Philippe Dessois will make some introductory remarks. So Philippe, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Fanny. So good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Why did we choose this topic today together with NEC? I mean, we feel at the international contractors level that the contracts are less and less well prepared by consultant or by designer. And before, let's say, the contractor can put a target price or a lump sum offer, let's say we need more time, we need more studies to develop the concept of the project, to be able, let's say, to price it, and at the same time also to de-risk the project to be studied. So let's say this concept of collaborative agreement is more and more now in common, let's say, in the market. But we were lacking until some time, let's say, reference contract like we have from FIDIC, for example, for remeasured contract. I mean, all the books, the red, the yellow, the silver, and some contract as well from NEC and some major administration. But on this collaborative agreement and specifically on the early contractor involvement, I mean, we were lacking this type of contract concept. So for CICA, I mean, maybe just a few words about CICA. So we try to improve, let's say, the contract conditions, which are, let's say, very important for contractors. So to have fair contract conditions. So we have a regular discussion with FIDIC and NEC. We have also regular discussion with the World Bank or the other multilateral development bank. We also discuss about integrity in the world. I mean, it's a major concept, of course, today, and also various financing model. So I think this seminar will be, of course, of interest. I mean, like Fanny mentioned, we will have the explanation of NEC new engineering contracts about their new clause X22 for ECI. We will have also a concrete case that B6, a Belgian general contractor, so developed for a project in Brazil. And then we will have also some discussion with a senior director at FTI to discuss, let's say, the way to have a successful ECI. So I will give back the floor to Fanny to introduce the first topic.
Thank you very much, Philippe, for this introduction. So we will first listen to John, who will share some slides and who will detail the content of the NEC clause X22 for early contractor involvement. So John, thank you very much. And you can share your screen directly if you would like to show the slides to the audience. Thank you.
Okay. So, my name's John Sherry from Stansett UK, and I'm a senior tutor from NEC. And today's slideshow is X22, early contractor involvement. Now, my background is in the water industry, and we've been using NEC, which is 31 years old, for over 20 years. And prior to X22, I've used early contractor involvement on challenging M&E contracts to deliver savings in time and money. So, early contractor involvement is a method of involving the contractor very early in the project lifecycle. Contractors' involvement can include design development, obtaining outline planning permission, identifying and mitigating risk. ECI is way different from design and build, where the client has already done preliminary design and is quite a way down the track of deciding what the contractor is going to do. The contractor is brought in very early on in the scoping, and it has two particular advantages. One, it can help develop the team, the construction team focused on delivery at a very early stage, introduce innovation and planning, but it also, by including enabling works and diversions, gets the contractor on board early and gives us longer time period to deliver the works. So ECI X22 has two stages. Stage 1 is used to procure the contractor and has an initial scope. During stage 1, the contractor will do additional enabling works, additional site investigation, and develop the scope, providing the client and the contractor with surety of final outturn costs in time and money. And stage 1 has a clean break point. So the contractor can deliver the scope in stage 1, and we actually have a break point. The contract isn't terminated, the contractor scope is changed just to cover stage 1, and it fulfills its obligation, and they're engaged under option E, time and cost reimbursable, or option C, target cost. But if we don't progress to stage 2, we just pay the contractor the actual cost to date. Now, traditionally, we've gone for early contractor involvement via the design and build or management contract, but this two-stage procurement under X22 can bring in the contractor at a way earlier stage in the project life cycle. Potential advantages: we develop a team ethos where both the client, the contractor, and other specialist suppliers form one team. Introduces innovation. Contractor provides advice on buildability, sequencing, and reduction of construction risk before we start. The one team spend more time developing the construction strategy, recruiting staff, and identifying specialist suppliers, which allows us to develop surety of outturn in both time and money. That's one of the problems with ECI though. I've seen it on one site, a £30 million refurbishment of a water treatment works, where the client, PM, and the contractor's specialist M&E project manager worked together and delivered over £6 million worth of savings because they were able to redesign the scope in stage 1. I've also seen it reach almost catastrophic failure where the client's initial understanding of the scope and budget were insufficient. The contractor during stage 1 developed the design and carried out enabling works and eventually worked out that the client's budget of 500 million on an energy to waste contract were probably out by 50%, that the minimum price without risk would have been 750 million, and the client and the contractor just closed the contract at stage 1. The client went out to the market, got a construction price of 600 million, but the final project costs following legal disputes and claims ended up at 1.5 billion. So one of the things that ECI allows both sides to do is to develop a realistic budget in time and money. Now, typical ECI, we procure our contractor, and what you include in your tender process is really important. Using measures to establish that we've got a good quality, safe contractor as part of the tender assessment is critical, but how do we calculate for stage 2 actual costs? When we did it, we had a bundle of smaller contracts which we asked the contractor to price, but we didn't actually calculate any defined cost. Effectively for stage 1, all that we had as competitive numbers with a fee. So we awarded 3 frameworks on a fee of between 8 and 12%. That meant for each contract that we awarded at stage 1, we ended up going through a series of negotiations. Now, stage 1 can be let as an option E, cost reimbursable, or option C. Notice proceed is a break point that allows us to decide to perhaps take the initial design to the market. And stage 2 completion occurs when we've completed the entire scope of works. Now, typically, 2-stage procurement would use consultants using the PSC to do design works, and then we'd award a design and build. ECI allows us to award 1 contract either on cost reimbursable or target for stage 1 to help both the client and the contractor develop surety of outturn. ECI was first introduced in NEC 3 as a Z clause. NEC 4 embraces it as a secondary option under X22, and the initial contract has been improved and changed to better allow the parties to utilise early contractor involvement. So during phase 1, we can develop further information, more detail on the scope. Those changes now become client's scope, and we can carry out more ground investigation So the site information, the factual data about the site that forms future compensation events in stage 2 can be changed as part of agreeing the stage 2 contract. So successful ECI relies on collaboration, 10.2 mutual trust and cooperation, but the contractor and the client need to follow the rules of the NEC contract. Critical to any good delivery is clear and concise scope from the client. This could be a high-level performance obligation, or it could be more detailed scope based on clients' asset standards. One of the main benefits of using X22 is that the contractor has to work within the project budget. The project budget represents the maximum amount of money the client wishes to spend on this project and includes all project costs, land acquisition, and risk. And the contractor cannot exceed the project budget without the PM's permission. So X22 has a number of subclauses. So we have the definitions that talk about incentivization. We have forecasts. So the contract has to produce on a monthly basis detailed forecasts of expenditure right up until completion of the entire project. 22.3 gives us the proposals for stage 2, allowing the client to develop the scope with the contractor as the works progress. During stage 1, we will often choose our contractor based on key members of its team, key people. The contractor cannot enter into the tender process for stage 1 and then change those key people without providing for acceptance people of similar qualifications and experience. Before we go to stage 2, we need a notice proceed. If the contractor and the client do not wish to go forward to stage 2, under X22.5, the contractor scope is changed to represent the work that they've done, and we bring the contract to a completion and the PM issues a completion certificate. Failure to proceed to stage 2 is not a termination event. And then we have changes to the budget. As we develop the scope, the client, via the PM, can increase the budget, but the contractor is not allowed to exceed the budget and may need to change its proposals stroke scope in order to deliver under the project budget. And then if we're using option C, we have a pain game mechanism under X22.7. Good contracts depend on good quality scope. So incentivization comes in stage 2. We have the budget and the contractor is incentivized against the final outturn cost against the client's budget. So with careful consideration of the client's objectives, ECI can support improved team working, innovation and early planning, deliver value for money, collaborative working and transparency, and shorten delivery periods by having the contractor on board early to carry out enabling works. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Jen, for this very clear and synthetic presentation. I am sure we will have many questions for you during the Q&A, but we will now turn to Christophe, who will present a case of ECI for a project of B6 in Brazil. So Christophe, I let you introduce yourself before your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, so Christophe Deboeuf, working for B6. I first joined B6 in 2003, working on a construction site in Libya. I spent many years abroad, and I joined back B6 in 2016. I think you have to put on mute. Yeah, I joined back B6 in 2016 in the bid management team, and now I'm in charge of the business development on the international. So today I wanted to explain a bit what we have done on a project in Brazil. So I will explain you first the genesis of the project. Tender was launched, a normal open tender was launched in 2019, and that was related to a quay wall refurbishment reconstruction, 900-meter quay wall. So no real appetite from our management. It was in a country where we never been before, in Latin America, Brazil specifically. So it was a bit difficult to convince the people to follow that. We decided to submit an offer with a concrete-based solution, and we were not successful. So client decided to continue the discussion with a contractor who was, let's say, a cheaper price, another solution, a steel solution, basically. During COVID period, they discussed and they tried to develop their project with the selected contractor. And at the end of let's say, just after COVID, they came back to us asking if we would like to quote again for this project. And for us, that was the opportunity to change the approach and to say, okay, on our side, with our management, we have several concerns related to the country. There are risks related to the country, difficulties of the project. So we decide to refuse to go and to enter again in an open tender process and to propose an ECI. So ECI, as already said, it's an early contractor involvement, is used for complex, let's say complex or unusual projects, where the client and contractor, and this is very important, are collaborating to develop a solution for the project. And the aim of that is, of course, reduce the risk, improve and secure the project cost and the project schedule. So that's very important right from the beginning, is that you really need to have trust between the parties. And this is this has to be there during the whole process. So that's number one. And second thing, which is very important, that was important for us, is we were compensated for this ECI. So going back to your management, say it's a difficult country, but no, it's a single source ECI. We are the only one working on it, and we will be compensated for our effort. Was really a big game changer for us and for the involvement of the right people during the ECI process. Why it was, let's say, what made the difference at this stage is that for us, they had a technical issue. That was the problem of the client. They have a technical issue. And the problem on our side as a contractor was the uncertainties linked to the country. So that was perfectly fitting with what an ECI can bring for a contractor and for the client. So we had very quickly the feeling that the technical wedding was possible between their technical team on the client side and the technical team on our side. And it was also a very good way to manage the risk for us and discuss and put all the risk on the table that were the concern of our management. And the third point that was very important was also to discuss about the margin that you want to apply on your work. Because if you look at the different steps we have followed, that was a bit different that was described before, but because we had to define the rules together with the client, we were not following really a contract that was ready to be used. We had to, let's say, create the rule and say, this is what we want, this is how we want it. So the 3 steps were defined as following. The first one was the optionation, what I call the optionation. So we decided to come up with 3 different solutions, technical solution, completely developed, present those solutions, keep the price out of the discussion, and decide with your client which one we want to follow. When this was done, then you go to the second stage, which is the open book estimate. So really there you go to, instead of going to a normal pricing, you open your book with the aim that at the end, if you are, everybody is okay with that, you incorporate all the comments from both parties, and then you have, let's say, you are ready to go to the next stage, which is to enter into a normal EPC contract. Let's say what what was really challenging for us, it was quite new for the client. It was also new for us because an ECI was not yet very often discussed, let's say, with client. Is you really need to maintain during the whole process the collaboration, which is key, which is the most important factor. You need to keep the collaboration and the trust, and this has to be maintained, which means you need to be fully transparent with your client. They have to be as well transparent with you, and you need really involvement on both sides on the table. So your team has to be there. You need a dedicated team for that. But on the side of the client, if you define that there are different milestones, different moments where you really need a decision from your client, this has to happen. Otherwise, you are failing. You are not respecting the rules, and then you might end up with you don't agree or you don't understand each other anymore. So those are really, I think, the most important point for me.
Thank you very much, Christophe, for sharing this positive experience with us. As for John, we will have questions for you right after our third presentation.
Okay.
So I will, and I'm conscious you have a train to catch, so we will take the first questions for you. So I will now introduce Gabriel. So Gabriel Armanet is Senior Director for the Construction Practice of FTI in Paris. He has a dual qualification in construction law and international procurement. He is chartered quantity surveyor and was involved for more than a decade on public and private contracting matters for metro projects, chemical industry, wastewater treatments, and mining works in Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Pacific. And Gabriel also provides lectures on contract management, financial models, and contract options for construction projects at École Nationale des Ponts et Chaussées in France. So Gabriel, could you please tell us what you consider as success factors for ECI, in particular with the NEC option X22?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak, and I hope the key factors I have identified are the same for John and Christophe. But the first one would be the quality of the design. It's quite critical and it's quite tricky as well, because you need to not overdevelop the design you will be providing to the bidders, to the potential ECI contractor. If it is overdeveloped, then you will limit the benefits of the process and contractor ability to improve buildability and cost efficiency. So in other words, that may result in lost efforts for everyone, and that would be counterproductive. So you need to find the right balance between a good brief, a good program, and an overdeveloped scope of work. So the second point would be about the budget, and it has been discussed by John as well. You need an adequate budget. I'm always advocating for a realistic budget, because too small or too aggressive budget from the client could be damaging for the success of the project, and may result in high damages. But before you launch a tender to appoint an ECI contractor and complete the first stage, you need to understand that there will be a resulting financial envelope built up by the client, and we can call it the baseline budget. In practice, this is, as it has been said by John, the resulting costing from all the trades, works, discipline, but also professional services, land acquisition, risk allowances, and of course all the overhead and profits that will be adding up, consultants, suppliers, and subcontractors, and of course the main contractor leading the way. The third point will be about the selection process for the appointment of the right candidate and contractors. So, contrary to the traditional procurement scheme, where there is a great emphasis on the pricing, for selection, as the design is already done. There should be a greater emphasis on the technical criteria for appointing the team. So you need to look at the people, design capabilities, past references to ensure you are picking the right people, the right contractor to develop your design. So for instance, NEC recommend that the technical criteria could represent up to 70% of the weight of the overall grade. And for the commercial part, you need to focus your attention on the proposed fee, the price for part of the works, in particular if you are doing some pre-construction activities, and also proposed unit rates. Then it is well known that the fourth point would be client capabilities. It is well known that you need the right people at the right place. And even if ECI is becoming more popular, people are more used to work with design and build and traditional procurement. So you need to make sure that you have the people with the right mindset in the spirit of trust and cooperation of clause number 10 of NEC to really act proactively and collaboratively to ensure the project success overall. And finally, the last will be the pricing information, which is at the heart of the ECI process. It must be transparent, structured, and reliable. And again, I'm making this emphasis on what has been said by John, but you need to empower the client and the project manager, if there is one, to understand how the technical solution is being built up, how the estimate is being to be presented, and to make sure that you give the client the capacity to compare its baseline, its initial scope, with all the technical solutions that are being proposed for entering into stage 2. So those are the key factors I have determined.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel. So just to summarize, so you spoke about the design, the adequate budget, the client capability, and also contractor capability, and also the pricing information. So we really need to make sure to have a closer look at all these points to have a successful ECI. And so you spoke about the pricing information, but could you please explain what it covers in NEC option X22? So maybe concrete examples. Thank you.
Thank you. So essentially, the ECI contractor will have to explain where are the figures coming from. They can come from their past references. So the construction contractors have a lot of knowledge and cost databases that they are regularly using to price projects, civil, structural, or MEP works. I mean, if it's not too exotic, they should know how much it's going to cost. Even if I appreciate what has been said by Christophe, that in some instances, this is complex and untypical projects where you need to be more cautious. So first source of information, in-house. Second could be unit market rates that you can factor in with degrees of complexity as long as you explain the assumptions you are taking to derive the figures you are putting forward. So for instance, in the UK, we have SPON, we have BICS or Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which are presenting a lot of sources of information for costing, but it all depends on the jurisdiction you are working in. I know that we are not, there are many people across the world hearing this conference, so they should investigate whether locally there are some existing rates available. And the last, yeah, please.
Could I just show you a scheme that we did that used ECI, not in a traditional way? So I'm just going to share the screen if that's okay. So this here is the 21st century wastewater treatment works. We've got the existing Victorian site was here, so we've got no extra land, but we've now got to go to 21st century final effluent standards.
We cannot
Sorry?
see your screen for now.
Right, sorry, just let me hit share. So,
No worries.
so the client on this scheme had a fixed budget. Now, it looks like a modern manufactory, but it's sewage treatment works. This thing had to be built on the site of the Victorian sewage treatment works, but do way more things. So we had limited site. So most sewage treatment works would spread out horizontally, so we had to go vertically. We had to use X10, the model, to build it because we had to manufacture it off-site. But this thing used membrane technology, which is normally used for clean water, for dirty water. So that meant that there were only 1 or 2 specialist manufacturers who we could go to for prices. So as part of the NEC's X22, we got quotes, 3 quotes for every piece of equipment during the tender process. So that A, we did open book, but the client also then went out to an international consulting engineer to review our programs, which give us a big chunk of the cost. Were our durations appropriate? So it was completely open book. Staff costs they could see, but the specialist equipment, we had to go for 3 quotes. So by having an open book and working collaborative, even with third parties to verify our programs and our costs, you can get confidence. In the end, it came in way above the client's budget. Do I believe it was the cheapest cost solution? Yes. But once you start to build things, risks occur, and you get problems. Sorry for interrupting. I just thought I'd share that with you, that you buy open book for the very specialist bits, 3 quotes. Sometimes you'll only be able to get 1 quote, but by explaining where the numbers are coming from, we can get confidence. The NEC's ethos, mutual trust and cooperation.
Thank you very much, John, for this illustration, which actually was in the continuity of what we was saying is, yes, you can obtain direct quotes from suppliers and subcontractors. This is the most time-consuming, but it's the way to reassure the client on the reliability and confidence in the target price that will be established eventually. So this is in particular important for key equipment, long lead items, or the largest packages to be awarded to minimize the risk and ensure that the price of the operation will be under control. So essentially, this is quite the techniques we are using in cost estimation: parametric, analogical, or analytical. So you can use all those methodologies to ensure the client that you will prepare a reliable target cost for your client at the end of stage 1. So you rightly mentioned as well risk allowance, which forms part of the price information. So you really need to investigate the factual data that is being given to you at the outset of the project, and any potential additional surveys, reports that are being provided to you during stage 1. So the contractor should have the capacity to establish what are going to be the potential challenges of the project. Are there going to be some site access issues, third parties issues, geotechnical conditions which are unsecured? So you really need to form what we call a risk matrix, which will be exchanged with the clients, where you can identify whether you have a potential risk of occurrence of a certain issue and price a provisional sum for it, or perhaps identify a percentage in the value of the markets to be performed. So you can find all types of options, but you need to be transparent in the risk you are assessing, what sources, what type of risks may occur on the project, to again reassure the client that the operation is under control. There are two other points I would like to mention in relation with pricing information, which are related to the subcontracting work process for stage 2, in particular when you start to actually contract for those works. You may really assure the clients that you are going to be answering to their needs and going with the most economically and technically the best solution for the client. So you need to show some transparency. And as it has been said by John, you may decide to propose several options to the client and have him to be part of the decision. This is a collaborative process after all that you need to follow. And the last point regarding the pricing information is about the project governance and procedures. So under the ECI and under stage 1 and 2, you need to share regularly what you are going to do, what's going to be the cost forecast, the technical solutions developed. But you need to do that in an organized manner and a comprehensive manner for the client, for the project manager, or any sort of consultant in the operation, in case we are not with NEC. But you need to set a procedure upfront explaining how you are going to proceed, how you are going to act transparently, and how you are going to inform and empower the client and the project manager to understand what you are doing in time. So by addressing all those factors, you are ensuring everyone that you are going to collaborate and have a transparent cost and price for executing the project if you go to stage 2, which is not and never guaranteed. Thank you.
So we hear a lot about the concept of open book. Could you maybe please help us understand better how it actually works when we speak about open book?
Yes, there is a bit of a confusion with open book because we hear about unit rates, we hear about lump sum prices and open book. So really open book is about the actual expenditure, the cost being incurred by the contractor for doing the work. So when we are dealing with open book, we are speaking about disclosure of information, subcontracts, purchase orders, amendments, payment certificates, invoices, and also it can go up to the payment evidence with a SWIFT, a bank transfer, to justify that the amount has been spent. It goes well with options E, particularly, and C, potentially, because the contractor has the obligation to maintain auditable records. And it's not only about auditable accounting information, it's also about a materiality of the works that are being done. So if you are going to use some civil concretors, you may also rely on timesheets. For mechanical, you could use you could have a need to access equipment mobilization record of a specific crane or whatever it is, but or for a supply of rebars, a material delivery note. So you really need to understand that the client, the project manager overseeing the operation, has full transparency on the cost being allocated to the project and to the project only. So NEC is quite clear on what costs are being allowed and disallowed. This is the terminology of NEC. So to summarize, to answer your question, Fanny, the open book works with the idea that you have defined costs, which you will be compensated for and agreed upon before, and a contractor fee. So the contractor fee is really the remuneration in exchange for the performance of all those works and services for the contractor. And this is mostly based off overheads and profit, and perhaps also as well a minor allowance for risks, for the contractor risk, because for instance, if there is some correction or defect in the performance of the contractor work, this will not be, of course, compensated by the client. But those is essentially, this is direct cost plus overhead and profit for the contractor. So this is a quite secure mechanism for the contractor, because it guarantees that the project will be somehow profitable, and it also gives more transparency and visibility for quite a controversial issue and commercial controversial issue, which is how much margin, how much profit is making a contractor on a specific project.
Can I
Thank
just
you,
step
Gabriel.
in there
Yeah, sure.
on that one? Under 20.4, under normal option E or C contracts,
Yeah.
the PM is supposed to work with the contractor to produce a forecasted defined cost every month. Now, in X22, it goes into the similar details, but it's working together collaboratively with a cost-loaded program to establish what the outturn costs are. With regards to audits, the PM under NEC can review any of the costs. Within the UK, most contractors use their actual audited cost system to demonstrate the open book. So anytime within the working hours, the PM can go in and review the costs. So costs are not really the big issue. It tends to be forecasts and the accuracy. But if the PM invests the time to work collaboratively with the contractor, then you get your trust and it works far better.
Yeah. The idea is having access, the possibility to have access to this cost ledger, as you mentioned, but not necessarily to scrutinize all the time every information. If this is what you meant, John. Yeah.
I was going the Ronald Reagan trust but verify.
No. So all good. It's a forensic accounting tendency in my habits, but no worries. Yeah. So this is it. But over open book mechanism is a quite a fair and transparent method to operate.
And maybe just one last point for your presentation, Gabriel. So also mentioned by John, the incentives. So in your opinion, what would be the difference between option C and E of the X22 clause?
There are few differences, but I mean, in terms of commitment, of course, with option C, the target cost, you have more certainty on what's going to be the final price of the project. So of course, it's a provisional target cost, so perhaps it's going to be under, perhaps it's going to be over, and in this event, there can be some pain and gain share mechanism, which is planned by the NEC. You have in the contract data the possibility to indicate what's going to be the share, the gain for the contractor if by making some value engineering, by being innovating during stage 2, he succeeds in minimizing the total cost for the client. So there is this notion as well of incentive that has been explained previously, and overall, I believe that ECI would work better with an option C, because it's a more credible option for public authorities spending public money with scrutiny, or private company when they need to fund an operation, than going with an option E, which is for only reimbursable cost, and give perhaps the impression that the project has no real cap or target.
Thank you, Gabriel. We will maybe hear also the opinion of the other speakers on these points. But in any case, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us and clarifying many concepts. So thank you. And I will now turn to Christophe again. And we would like to ask you, Christophe, the main takeaways of this ECI in Brazil, if you are still with us.
Yeah, I'm still there.
Great. So yes, if you have any additional comments.
What is very important, I think, is that you need to be sure that the game rules or your contractual frame rules are well understood on both sides of the table. That's very important that your client, the client and the contractor are well aware of their obligation, what they need to deliver, when they need to deliver, what are the expectations, when you will need a decision to be taken on both sides, etc. So that's really important. Then the second thing is that you have to be sure on within your team as a contractor that you will do everything to maintain the trust and the transparency with your client. So the trust is there, otherwise you don't start and you don't start the collaboration, but you have to do everything to keep that. And this is really going together with the transparency through the whole process. So we spoke about open book estimate. For us, for instance, it was very easy. We really share all the offers, all the things that we were receiving, where we are the comparison table matrix, and they decide themselves which one we are going to select. So it was really not on the procurement. It was quite easy for us. You do the analysis, the comparison, and they decide. But that's being fully transparent, and that's being transparent on the expected cost for the project. And then as I say, a collaboration between the parties is also very important. And you hear always when you speak about ECI, you speak about trust, you speak about transparency, and you speak about collaboration. But that's the biggest challenge. Many clients, they are not used to that. They don't collaborate. They don't have a collaborative approach. When you go to a normal open tender, an ECI, you need to have this collaborative approach. This is how it will be successful, and this is how you can really bring something by going through this process. That's
Thank
what
you,
I would.
Christophe. Maybe
Okay.
someone else from the audience has any questions to Christophe. Maybe Andine, you can also help me see if we have any questions. But
we have questions in the chat. So maybe I will start. I saw one for Christophe.
Sure, if you can.
Okay, so what are the evaluation criteria in the contractor procurement phase to select the right contractor and avoid exploding the budget? Essentially, how can we identify a contractor we can trust?
But you have always the option as a client to do a competitive ECI. And this is what we used to say to the client as well. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to select a contractor from the day one and to say, I want to start an ECI with this contractor. You can go through a phase, or let's say it's a competitive ECI, and you can also have 2 or 3 contractors and decide that at certain stage you will continue the journey with one of them. And maybe the one you trust more, and then you decide to continue. I understand that it's not easy to select the first one contractor from day one. So sometimes you can see that competitive ECI are becoming an approach for some of the clients.
Maybe we have another question for the panel. So what does the panel consider to be the major advantages for engaging a contractor under an ECI as opposed to a partnering approach? So who would like to take this one?
Let my colleague do. I will run away.
I was going to say I'll have a go. So ECI, you're bringing in the contractor from a very early stage. So you're actually building one team with the aim of building mutual trust and cooperation from the beginning. So the fact that we're working from the start means we can potentially get the innovation. That scheme I showed you, the Woolston, could not have been built with traditional construction techniques. In the end, we breached our internal governance because the only way we could deliver was by accepting the performance guarantee on the membranes. The suppliers wanted 4 times the physical area we had on site, but because we'd researched with the client the technology and had faith in it, we were able to deliver the advanced technical solution in an area. But we were incentivized on the outturn costs from the beginning. Partnering's a good approach, but you've still got to decide how you incentivize the parties. Is it option E, where the partner has no risk, or is it option C? And if I'm going to do option C with the target, the ECI gives us the advantage for the early adoption of a contractor, so we're getting their expertise at a very early stage rather than at a design and build where the clients fix the scope.
Thank you,
Maybe
Jill.
another question
Sure,
again
go
for
ahead,
the
Andy.
panel. So it is from Dan James, if the person wishes to develop. What is the main issue under ECI of an underdeveloped client design? Anyone wishes to answer?
Gabriel?
John? Yeah.
I was going to say, if you've got good schemes, start with good quality scope. So if the client hasn't developed the scope, we're probably going to either develop something that they don't want, or we're going to burst the budget. It doesn't matter what form of contract we're on. Good contracts start with the contractor having the right price, so that they want to collaborate instead of fight for extra money, and we need a clear scope. Now, the scope doesn't have to tell us what to do. It could be that the scope is a performance objective, like that wastewater treatment works. You've got to deliver certain criteria, and then you develop it within the footprint.
If I may add on that, you can have a functional scope, but also a more prescriptive scope. The risk of having an underdeveloped brief would be to have two different solutions being proposed by the potential bidders, the potential contractors. So this is where I said it was tricky. You need to find the right limit. Perhaps you need to give some input quantities. Perhaps you need to give a more detailed layout drawing. Perhaps you need to give some more information, sufficient information, to ensure that you will be able to compare the solutions, and eventually, as Jean has said, to ensure that you are not going to have a solution which are developed which are actually not answering your basic needs for the project.
Thank you, Gabriel. So maybe we can take a few more questions. Feel free also to select some in the chat if you think they are particularly relevant. Yeah, sorry.
There's one just come through that says, how do we define an adequate budget?
Yeah, adequate budget.
Well, when we developed that wastewater treatment works, we had third-party independent verification, separate estimates. So not only were they reviewing the open book as we put the bid together in the program, but they were also carrying out independent through their own databases, and you can use whichever company you want to do that. The problem is, though, if a contractor is losing money because we've awarded at the wrong price, the behavior isn't based on cooperation. The whole reason we use the NEC is to work together. If we have the wrong price where we're forcing a contractor into a loss-making contract, their energy is going to be based on trying to increase their payments rather than building the solution, which ultimately will result in disputes, delays, and additional costs. So it's all about verifying, however you do it, that we're paying the right budget for the particular solution. And it's only if you've got the right scope and the right price are you going to be able to work collaboratively. Otherwise, the economics drive different behaviors.
Mm-hmm. So we have a general question from Yassine Mansour. So on the contrary, there is a situation where ECI is really not preferred. And it's very open question, but.
Well, I mean, if you have sufficiently developed your scope and you have worked with, let's say, an engineering contractor on a traditional procurement scheme, well, of course, you don't need to go with ECI. So if you have set all the parameters for your project to be executed, of course, the benefits of using early contractor involvement will not exist. So you may need to check whether it may be preferable to go with another option of the contract like option A.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Question.
Yeah.
From Lee Boudenis, how do risk allocation differ between ECC option E and option C?
So in option E, the client's paying all costs that are properly due, whereas in option C, we take a target, the prices, and if the contractor exceeds it, it starts to pick up a share of that pain. How the contract is filled in, a lot of NEC contracts that purport to be option C target cost are actually guaranteed maximum prices. So if the contractor exceeds, say, 20% of the target, a lot of clients will set the share range that the contractor picks up 100% of the overspend. So the contractor effectively, if it overspends, say, 20 or 30% above the target cost, picks up the entire cost. But it's not, I wouldn't do that. I would work generally to share it 50-50.
At some point, this is you have the part where you can gain if you are being more, or you minimize the cost, but you need also accept that the fees, the margin, the profits being made on operation, which the budget is exceeded, you need to understand that the contractor also has to contribute to part of the damage because he was early involved in designing the entire project.
And we also received several questions regarding the subcontractors. So how do you involve the subcontractors for the ECI? And how do you deal with your subcontractors at stage 1 for the ECI contractor and also the clients? Do you have any considerations for subcontractors?
The model would normally be similar, that we would enter for some design work with the subcontractors on option E, and then in stage 2 it's very common with the tier 1 suppliers or tier 2 to actually go to a fixed price under option A or a target cost. In the UK, the ECI contractor is generally on option C and the tier 2s are on option A, so they're on lump sums. That also helps the management contractor on the ECI get surety of outturn for some significant elements of the cost.
So in other words, it's direct contracting from the client.
No, the management contractor places the option A contract with the tier 2s put on a fixed price, but it's the contractor that's placing the order. So they have a prime contract with the ultimate client, and then they have direct contracts with their supply chain.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I think we still have many questions, but maybe we will summarize all these questions and send some recap later on after the webinar. So I would like to ask you if you have any other comments about ECI, John and Gabrielle, before we go to the conclusions. Or if you saw any relevant questions that you would like to answer now also from the chat.
I'm good so far, Fanny. Thank you.
Good. And John, maybe?
Just the same as always, we can only get success in ECI if the scope is done properly in phase 1 and phase 2, and also that we're going to pay our contractors a fair amount of money. You've got to accept that the UK contractors model of working on 2 or 3% is not sustainable, and that's why we've had big failures like Tarmac. Everybody's got to get benefit from the contract. Both the client needs to get what they want for a fair price, but we have to reward the contractor with profit for doing a good quality job.
And Philippe, do you have any other comments?
I mean, thank you for this wise response, John. I think, yeah, I mean, we have both, let's say, to make money. Yeah? I mean, the contractor, of course, cannot survive also with, like you said, 1 or 2% profit. I mean, even if there is no risk, I mean, we have overheads to pay, and we have staff behind us. So maybe something also for the audience. I mean, we will have a follow-up of this collaborative agreement with the CICA conference in Paris on Tuesday, the 26th of November in Paris, and we will have, let's say, a session with NEC, with FIDIC, and also with David Mossy, which is the professor at the King's College in London, and also a specialist on collaborative agreement, and as well participation of contractors. So it will be, let's say, some presentation and a panel, and that would be, of course, of great interest, I think, for some of you. And I think we will make the link available to the one who attended the webinar today. So I will maybe leave the conclusion, Fanny, if you want to say a few words.
Could I just
yes,
ask
sure.
Philip a question, please?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
So, Philip, I'm representing NEC, and we make a big play about mutual trust and cooperation. But one of the things I think we've lost sight of is how do we actually change the behaviours? Because traditional contracting is the reason why we've got NEC, because it didn't work. But we don't look at how do we get the team, contractor, client, to work collaboratively, because it's different to how we work normally. How can we use psychology to influence the team to play nicely together for the benefit of everybody?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, what is wrong is the culture of the lowest bidder. I mean, we have to, I mean, all of us in the, let's say, in the contracting business to try to change this. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you are the lowest bidder, either you made a mistake, either you gamble, either you will try to recover some money later on to survive. So we have to change this culture of lowest bidder for tender. Okay, we have now, let's say, some contracts which are also based on technical price, let's say, or points, with some balance between price and technical issues. It is still subjective, so it is still debatable if it is the best solution or not. For me, the best is the collaborative agreement, where we have to find a balance, of course, between the wish of the client to have a project which is well executed on time and in budget, and the wish of the contractor, which want to make money at the end. But of course, it's not a smooth ride. I mean, there is always some hiccup. But if we at least talk together instead to fight together, it helps. And also with CICA, maybe I can mention briefly, I mean, we promote also the dispute board resolution. So instead to wait the end of the contract to go for dispute or to accumulate the dispute, let's try to resolve the dispute when they arise. That's also could promote, let's say, a better way to do to perform the contracts in general. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we would like to thank our three panelists for sharing their time and expertise with us today. We hope we could clarify the concept of ECI and give you some concrete takeaways. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just lost my screen. But in any case, yes, we hope you could have some key takeaways. So Andine has shared with you in the chat the link to register for our conference in Paris, which will deal with collaborative contracting. And I would like also to inform you of our next episode of this series of webinars, NEC and CICA, which will, as Philippe has just mentioned, deal with dispute avoidance in NEC contracts. So we would like to thank you very much for attending this webinar and hope to see you for the next one, which will take place on November 14th online, and you will receive the invitation. So thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.